Hi, I'm Stephen Park, the Olympic team manager, and I'm here at the RYA Suzuki Dinghy Show, and I'm speaking to Freddie Carr from Ainslie Racing. How are you this morning, Fred?
Very well, very well. Excited to be here. It's always good to come to the Dinghy Show because they're proper sailors, passionate sailors, so it's always good to come to the RYA Dinghy Show for sure.
And it must be interesting you coming here on a stand as an exhibitor, really, as a sailor, because I mean you've been presumably coming for years and years as a kid.
Sure. I mean, I came up here with Dad for 10 years, and I remember how excited I was. I think in like 93, 94 when I saw a Laser 5000, and the Laser 5000 was the absolute business. And I spent all day looking at this high performance skiff, and then you walk into the hall today and see the options that the kids have got to sail in terms of racing boat nowadays, and it blows my mind. So I'm a little bit jealous of their 12 and 13-year-olds, to be honest, and the cool boats that they can go sailing on.
Yeah, well, the Laser 5000, of course, has got a lot to answer for, hasn't it? I always remember one of the great stories that Ben Ainslie tells about when he sailed with Ian Percy with the Laser 5000 at Hailing Island, had to be brought back ashore by the lifeboat. But hopefully he's improved his sailing skills in his Olympic boats. Is he doing all right in the high-speed catamarans at the moment?
Yeah, he's doing just fine, to be honest. No, we've had a really solid sort of year from the launch of BAR. We've got a great sailing team, and talking about the RYA Dinghy Show, we've got 6 British sailors on our sailing team at the moment, 5 of which came up through the RYA youth system. So it's a massive credit to the structure that you guys have within this country, and you can see the direct line from grassroots sailing into the UK to not only Olympic sailing, where you guys go and hoover up all your medals, but there's also a pathway into the America's Cup.
And so when you look at sailors that are coming into these high-performance multi-hulls, what do you think the key skills are that are being looked for by America's Cup teams nowadays?
Well, America's Cup now is as close to high-performance skiff and dinghy sailing as it's ever been. Long gone are the days where we're doing 2-hour races out at sea. We're basically doing stadium racing, like your Olympic medal racing, and that's the young sailors coming out of the Olympic scene have already got that kind of tactical awareness and that quickness of thought that you have to have on an America's Cup boat, and the two are closer than ever before, and the opportunities to get into America's Cup racing via the Red Bull Youth America's Cup, and just the fitness levels that these young Olympic sailors bring to our world is mind-blowing. Some of the guys that we've been fitness testing are right up there with the best rowers that Britain are producing as well. So there's a definite pathway from the RYA Olympic scheme. Go and get your gold medals, which we're very good at, and then it's a pretty easy step over to America's Cup racing.
But it seems to me that looking at the progress of Ben Ainslie Racing Team over the last year or so, that there's been a huge amount of progress, but it's a massive logistical challenge, and the discipline, both from a team perspective and from an athlete or a sailor perspective, is pretty important.
It's huge. I mean, we know it's a massive design race, and we're very lucky within the UK that I believe we've got the best marine industry, and we've got some of the best sailing brains around, and we've tapped into that. And it's a management exercise, Sparky, as you know all too well. I mean, you can have all the talent in the world, but if you're not managing it well, you're going to go nowhere. So, to be honest, within personal management, everything that you learn at a young age within your RYA regional squad, within the youth squad or the Olympic development squad, how to take your notes, how to manage your diet, how to be fit, how to improve yourself as a sailor, is exactly what we're doing still at Ben Ainslie Racing. Everything you're learning as a teenager is the skills that you need as a sort of 20, 30-year-old to go racing on a cup boat.
And so what sort of level of debriefing then are you running in terms of trying to learn those skills on a day-by-day basis? Yeah,
I mean, when we go out sailing on our testing boat, our AC45, we have 2 boats that follow us. One of them is our designer boat, which has a live feed off the catamaran, and that's got a bunch of brainy guys with iPads basically looking at all the numbers live, and that we're basically debriefing live with a live communication system to the boat, telling Ben what to change, what we think might go a little bit faster. Long term, we're actually going to have the live feed off the boat to our base in Portsmouth, so you don't need to be on the water. And not only will they be looking at numbers, but we're going to have live video feed off the boat as well. So coaches can sit there, watch us go around an America's Cup race course, and by the time we hit the shore, they'll have all the video analysis done with all the numbers to go alongside the video. So we hit the shore, pack the boat up, and we go straight into our debrief. And that is brilliant. It's such a good use of your time.
One of the things I suppose that always strikes me when I talk to people about Olympic sailing, and the same when I look at people in Grand Prix sailing, is that they talk about sailors going to lots of fantastic venues around the world and sailing, and they get an impression of people sort of sitting around drinking a lot of coffee and having a fantastic life. But that's not my experience of Olympic sailing. It's not what I see in America's Cup. And I know that we live very close to the water. We see you guys out training early in the morning, in the winter when it's snowing. I mean the number of hours involved in the days and the continuous nature of that seems to be very intense. How are you finding that?
It's hard, but again, I go back to our youth. We rolled out our AC45 in the snow the other day, put the wing up and went sailing, and we're all joking about when we were 18 years old in the RYA youth squad, you'd have to take your laser main sheet up to the clubhouse and defrost it. And it's that kind of British mentality that you grow up with, like just get on with it, and it's kind of stood us all in good stead. But as you know, it's the hours you do away from the camera, much like your Olympic sailors, that are the hours that count. It's the hours on the road bike, it's the hours burying yourself under a squatting bar that are the big hours that count. And the kind of regatta side of things and staying in your race mode in a nice venue is where you cash it in, basically. But it's the miserable sailing in the Solent in the middle of January is the really hard one.
Yeah, and the sacrifice seems to me, the day in, day out, being ready to go. I mean, I know that there was a few days after Christmas, you guys were straight out there, 8 o'clock in the morning, boat launch, because that was the weather window to go sailing.
Exactly, and to be honest, we know that Artemis, we know that Oracle, we know that Prada are doing the same thing, and that's motivation enough, to be honest.
So you've referenced a few of those teams. I mean, 3 of those 4 teams you've mentioned, of course, have got British skippers, with Chris Draper at Prada and with Ian Percy at Artemis. So is it going to be then a fight between the British skippers?
It's quite nice, actually. The America's Cup, historically, I think it's safe to say the skippers don't really get on. But obviously, Ian and Ben are best mates, and Chris is well in the loop, a really good guy, went to the Oppie Worlds. In fact, Ian, Ben and Chris all went to the same Oppie Worlds in Argentina. So it's quite a nice little quirk, actually, that the America's Cup community kind of gets on at the moment. And I think a lot of that stems from Olympic sailing as well. Everyone has sort of graduated from the Olympic sailing out of the 90s and the 2000s that has completely changed the sport. They've come out as athletes and they've come out as focused individuals, and they've brought that into the America's Cup, and we've kind of left the old school I'm better than you kind of one-upmanship behind, and it's turned into the sport that it always should have been.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds to me that we're really getting sort of British sailing going now across all the disciplines and all the levels, both offshore with the stuff that's going on with the Volvo Ocean Race. We've got some great British representation there, the America's Cup, Olympics, through the youth programme. I mean, I remember when Russell Coutts was talking about the launch of Ben Ainslie Racing, and he was saying that how pleased he was to be in the UK because he felt that there was a lot of talent coming out to the UK. And how do you think that's going to be going forward? I mean, is it going to be Brits dominating that programme? Is it really going to be British sailing across all those different disciplines working together? And is it going to make the sport stronger as a whole in the UK?
Yeah, I think it will. I think if you look at Team New Zealand as a model, Team New Zealand, a population of 4 million people, they love rugby and they love sailing, and they are passionate, so passionate about their sailing. You get in a taxi cab at the airport and the taxi driver will be talking to you about sail shapes of jibs as he's driving you into the city. And in the UK, we're not quite there, but we're not far off it. The kind of groundswell of support for sailing and what you guys have achieved with being the most successful British Olympic sport over the last number of games, and with what we're trying to achieve at BAR, and then you have, as you said, all these amazing offshore sailors as well. It feels like a real boom time within the sailing industry. I believe that if you look historically over the last sort of 20 years, there was a bit of Kiwi dominance within yacht sailing. I look at the people dotted around yacht sailing now, America's Cup and Volvo, and I can kind of see we're right on the crest of something big like that within the UK with the talent that we've got.
And so again, with the Kiwis, they've come on in the past, and we're coming back into that keelboat side, I suppose, from a British perspective. But just this last week, they've made some changes to their setup, going, I suppose, back to youth, back to Olympic-style sailing.
That's the perfect example, Sparky. Like Pete Burling, arguably with Giles Scott, in my opinion, the best dinghy sailor in the world right now. And Pete has proved himself not only in Olympic sailing, obviously getting the silver in London and then go on to dominate since then. He went, like, his sailing in the Moth Worlds down in Australia blew my mind, to be honest. That, for me, was like the Champions League of small dinghy sailors, and the way that he dominated that event was unbelievable. And he's got his reward. He's going to most likely going to helm Team New Zealand in the next America's Cup.
And we're seeing the same with Oracle as well. As Slingsby this week back out skipping with him and his, and also those other guys on the Artemis campaign.
Right. I mean, Paul Goodison was the helmsman this week out at Artemis. Paul Goodison, obviously Olympic gold medalist, been to the Olympics for the British team 3 times, great sailor, and he's helming Artemis at the moment. I mean, it is at the forefront of every team. There's a successful Olympic talent, and that says it all. You've got to go and cut your teeth and really get your head into Olympic sailing, and then the doors are wide open to you.
And of course, one of the things with Ben Ainslie Racing is the view that this is not a quick win we're looking for here with Ben Ainslie Racing. It's a long-term campaign to win the America's Cup.
Quite. We're a sailing team now of 8. We think we're going to go into the 35th Cup in 2 years' time with a sailing team of 12, and we're looking at young guys. We're very aware our average age. Giles Scott's our youngest sailor now, 27, I believe. Myself and Nick Hutton and Paul Campbell-James are all 32. And then we have Ben, who's a little bit older, and Matt Cornwall and Jono Macbeth, who is a little bit older. But we are very aware that we need to get people in blooded now, under 25 years old. And all you have to do is look at the cream of the crop in your Olympic squad, and the kind of, not only the skill level of the sailor and the racing mind that we've talked about, the quickness of thought on a medal course is impressive, but some of the fitness numbers that they send our trainer through are seriously impressive.
Yeah, I think there's also that standard, isn't there? I mean, there's both in terms of the support staff and the experience that exists, and about how they're able to sort of bounce ideas off each other and keep things moving, raise their own standard to keep the athletes going.
Exactly, and as you know so well, Sparky, it is about, you can have the best sailors in the world, and if you don't manage them, set their goals, set their expectations, and help them every step along the way, then we're going to go nowhere. So we have exactly the same managerial kind of issues and hurdles as you guys do.
So it kind of seems strange to us, but bearing in mind we were just saying about the youngsters coming through and the fact that it's pretty high impact, it's high speed, it's high energy. As someone who I still consider one of the youngsters of the programme, do you think it's a bit strange? You're now looking over your shoulder for who the next youngsters are going to be. You're going to be soon knocked off your perch.
No, and I'm kind of happy to be. Like Jono Macbeth, when I first met him, Jono Macbeth is our sailing team manager, a great man, won the America's Cup twice, and he is 40 years old, and he is amazing, Nick, for a 40-year-old. And he kind of said early on, he was just like, I'm looking for people to get me off the boat, basically. I've done my job well if I'm not sailing, and that's the kind of that really resonated with me. And yes, I feel like I've got a lot to offer on a racing boat, but my goodness, if a sailor of sort of equal talent or close to equal talent came along and was 25% fitter than me and was going to move the wing in and out more and put oil into the hydraulics quicker than me, then I'm all about Queen and Country, and I'm happy to kind of step back and let that young guy have a good run at it, for sure. Yeah,
I mean, Jono did a great talk with all our sailors at the podium camp back in October, when he was relatively fresh into the UK.
Yeah.
But it kind of seems to me that we're just about got most of the pieces of the sort of British sailing jigsaw now in place, and that we maybe over the next sort of 20 years or so might be hopefully a bit of a golden time in terms of all of the different disciplines and pinnacles of the sport.
Quite, I mean, and kind of one of our golden rules at BAR is we believe that we have the best marine industry in the world, not just what we're seeing here with the dinghy racing, but you look at all like ship design, shipbuilding, everything within the marine industry. We believe we're the best in the world at it, and that's not being arrogant, that's just how we feel. And where we can, we will employ British people to do the jobs, and we want to be a British team. You kind of look at New Zealand, and although they've had a bit of a wobble recently, what they've done in the last 20 years, they've been the most successful sailing team, and that's where we want to be in the next 20 years.
Yeah, great. Well, it sounds like it's all going well. Looking forward to Bermuda?
Yeah, looking forward to Bermuda. Very, very small race course, very different to San Fran, but so a bit of a different mindset. But what it will be is San Francisco was, you knew what your tactics were going to be 2 days before, whether the tide was coming in or going out. And it was, in terms of sail racing, it's pretty boring tactically. Bermuda is going to be a race. There's going to be wind shifts will be deciding who wins the America's Cup, and I think with Ben on the boat, obviously with driving, and the likes of Giles and Paul Campbell-James at the back of the boat sniffing out the wind shifts, I think that really plays to our strengths.
And we're going to obviously have a first event this summer in the UK.
Yeah, down in Portsmouth last weekend in July, and you get pretty excited about the numbers you hear of people coming down to watch, and it will be spectacular whether you're a sailing fan or not. To come down and see these boats sailing at 40 miles an hour, 20 metres off the beach is something to behold. So
that could be quite a good time, couldn't it? July, August, because we've got the Olympic test event in August, so most of our team actually flying out just that Monday after the America's Cup, so they can be involved in the World Series event down in Southsea. So
there you go.
It should be a great weekend, and then hopefully a good few weeks of sailing for the Olympic classes after that.
Exactly, and like we are as massive fans as you guys follow us. Like, we are sitting there, and our first conversations in the coffee room is like when we're following you guys in Rio at the last test event, or Miami. I mean, fantastic results from your squad in Miami, and it does actually send a real buzz around the office, and it's also really good fun getting into the foreign designers when the Brits are doing a lot better than the French, so we enjoy that.
Yeah, it seems like it's a good time, and hopefully that motivation is going to help build, both in terms of motivation for the Olympic team and of course for Ben Ainslie Racing, and indeed for all the other aspects of our sport where we're out representing the country, winning for Great Britain.
Exactly.
Good to catch up with you today, Freddie.
Cheers, Sparky. Good to see you.